Picture a strip of parchment. The English manor of East Mion, 1409. The steward writes down 2 lines, 22 shillings for iron and steel for the plows, 8 shillings for the smith who forged all of it, every share, every coulter, every fitting, a whole year at the forge. 3/4 of the bill is metal. 1/4 is the man with the hammer. That single line is where the real story of a medieval smithy begins, not with sparks over an anvil, not with a knight at the door holding a purse, with the question that decided everything. Who pays for the iron? Answer it wrong, and your skill spends its whole life working for somebody else's accounts. So let's open a smithy and test it in money. 1 forge, 1 apprentice, a rented house and workshop by the road into a small market town in southern England. The year is 1410. By the end, you'll know what it cost to open the doors, where the money actually came from, which single clause in a contract separated a fed smith from a ruined one, and whether soot ever turned into real wealth. The sword disappears from this story almost immediately. Let's start there. You've seen the shot. Dark room, orange light, a blade being born under the hammer. In a real English town in 1410, you are not forging that blade. You wouldn't be allowed to. Weapons and armor are somebody else's territory. Plate goes to the armorer, blades to the bladesmith. Knives are finished by the cutler, spurs by the spurrier. In the bigger cities, these trades guard their borders so tightly that the smith's company records are stuffed with quarrels about who poached whose work. The knight who needs a sword doesn't turn off into your village, he rides past. Now look at who actually stops. The farmer whose plowshare cracked on frozen ground. The carter who needs a new iron tire before the fair. The miller losing money every hour his millstones stay blunt. Builders buying nails by the hundred plus hinges, bolts, and brackets. Housewives with tongs, hooks, and a leaking cauldron. And the traveler whose horse threw a shoe right there on the road. That's exactly why the smithy sits where it sits. Archaeologists dug up a forge at Chieveley, and its position gives away the whole strategy. The hearth stands at the edge of the village, tight against the road that runs into the main street. Far enough that the smoke, the noise, and the fire risk don't reach the neighbors. Close enough that every cart and every horse entering town passes an open frontage. One more thing while we're breaking the film version. You don't melt iron and pour it into molds. Smelting ore happens somewhere else entirely. It's a separate industry. What arrives at your door is finished iron in bars. You heat it until it glows. Then you beat it, bend it, punch it, and weld it. Your entire craft is making solid metal move. Now look around once more. Every plow, cart, mill, door, and roof in sight is made of wood. And every one of those things wears out and breaks exactly where iron holds the wood together. Remember that. We come back here for the real money. Costing a medieval startup is usually guesswork. Here we got lucky. 1454, London. Officials walk into the workshop of a craftsman called Richard Cripps and write down everything he owns, item by item, because Cripps owes money. He's a wheelwright, not a smith, but he has a full working forge inside his shop. And his inventory is the best surviving price list we have. Let's build your smithy from it. The heart of the trade, 9 pairs of tongs, pincers, 7 hammers, a small horned anvil for curved work, and a real anvil weighing 114 pounds. Altogether, 10 shillings and 6 pence. Now the surprise, the bellows. 2 leather lungs feeding air to the fire. 6 shillings and 8 pence. 2/3 the price of every hammer and anvil in the place, just to make the fire breathe. Without them, the hearth never reaches the temperature where iron turns soft. Nobody cuts corners on that line. Onward through the list. 7 files, 5 pence. A fire shovel, 4 pence. A grindstone with its trough, 4 shillings. A stand and a water tub, 1 shilling. Portable tools total, 22 shillings and 11 pence. And then the strangest entry in the whole inventory. Cripps has more than 100 weight of old iron lying about. Broken fittings, worn shoes, scrap. Valued at 9 shillings and 2 pence. New iron in the workshop, none at all. Which means nearly 1/3 of the value of everything movable in that smithy is other people's rubbish. That pile comes back later and decides your margin. Add the yearly rent on a house and workshop, roughly 20 shillings using historian Christopher Dyer as a guide. Add your first load of fuel and enough cash to survive the slow payers. Your minimum opening bill runs from £2 12 shillings to about £4. That's our reconstruction from documented prices, and it comes with a caveat. Buy everything new, or aim bigger, and the number multiplies. A Parisian armorer's anvil and bellows alone were valued at 60 shillings back in 1302. The Royal Armoury at Greenwich, built a century after your time, spent nearly £14 on tools. To feel the scale, hold it against wages. In London in the 1450s, a journeyman smith earned 40 shillings a year, cash, no board. Opening the cheapest version of your shop costs 1 to 2 years of a working smith's entire income. Expensive, but reachable. And the anvil still isn't the priciest part of this business. Work that shop alone for a week, and the problem finds you. The bellows need pumping while the iron heats. Heavy work needs one man on the tongs and a second on the sledge. Somebody has to stand at the front and talk to the farmer, while the fire in the back demands attention. And then somebody has to chase the people who haven't paid since spring. You have 2 hands. The shop needs 6. Option 1. Hire a journeyman, a trained smith on wages. Those 40 shillings a year buy you real skill from day one. London's rules of 1434 even set a test. An outsider had 2 weeks to prove he could actually work, and only then would a master take him on for 3 years. Expensive. And when the term ends, he walks. Option 2 is the one everyone misreads. Take an apprentice. Free labor, 7 years, the boy works for nothing. Except the apprentice lives in your house. You feed him, clothe him, and keep him under your roof for 7 years. While he learns, he burns your charcoal, ruins your iron with practice, and eats whether or not the shop earned a penny that week. A study of 82 medieval apprenticeship contracts put the full cost of 7 years' keep at £12 to £39, and the biggest line in it is food. The range covers many trades, not just smiths, but even the bottom end is nearly £2 a year. In any single year, a hired journeyman is cheaper per unit of useful work. The masters understood this perfectly, and the proof is in the fines. In London, poaching another man's journeyman costs 6 shillings and 8 pence. Poaching an apprentice costs 20 shillings, 3 times as much. The free worker was worth more because by year 5 he had become a trained striker bound by contract, and everyone in the trade knew what those years of feeding him had cost his master. Records from Romney in 1451 show Smith's apprentices earning a penny a week. One was promised 20 shillings at the end of his term, deferred pay with dinner included. Apprenticeship never made labor free. It turned wages into a 7-year food bill and tied the man to the shop so he couldn't leave for better money. And there's labor the histories barely count, though the receipts survive. A workshop is a whole household. Wives and children do the cold work, the finishing, and the selling at the counter. The London Smiths' Fraternity of 1434 formally included sisters, and 2 of the signatories were Smiths' wives. And when the Royal Forge in the Tower needed running in 1346, the job went to a woman. Catherine Lefebvre ran the King's smithing operation while her son was overseas. The team is assembled. Master, an apprentice in his later years, family behind him. Now everything depends on what walks through the door, but first, on what rolls into the yard. Bar iron doesn't grow in your yard. It comes from smelting districts like the Forest of Dean or the Weald in Kent and Sussex, passes through merchants, and reaches your town on a cart. Between you and the source sit at least 2 middlemen, a road, and merchant credit, which means the price you pay moves up and down with wars, road conditions, and rumors you have no influence over whatsoever. Steel is a different substance altogether, and you handle it like saffron. You buy it in small pieces and never waste it on the body of a tool. Archaeologists who sectioned medieval knives from Eynsham Abbey saw the whole technique: a thin steel edge, forge welded onto a cheaper, tougher iron back. Steel holds the edge, iron bends without snapping, and the price stays survivable. The East Mion bill puts iron and steel on one line of plow work for a reason. Steel goes on the cutting edge, iron does everything else. The third cost is fuel, and it burns whether or not anybody is paying you for that heat. A country forge like yours burns charcoal. In London, smiths burn sea coal. We only know that detail because the smoke of one London forge ended up in a lawsuit we'll get to shortly. Every reheat costs fuel, which means the slow payer does something worse than delaying your revenue. Every trip his job takes back into the fire eats a stock you have already paid for. Now, remember that pile of old iron at Cripps's place? A farmer brings in a cracked hinge. You forge it back, hand it over, take the money. Simple. But if he wants a new hinge, one quiet question decides your margin. Does the old one go home with him or stay in your pile? Worn shoes, spent fittings, split strapping, every piece is future raw material you never paid merchant prices for. At the moment of the inventory, the only iron in Cripps's forge was reclaimed. No surviving document tells us who kept the scrap, so it may well have been settled case by case. But the arithmetic is one-directional. Scrap reaches you free, and its value compounds with every repair. A broken horseshoe is a warehouse waiting for a fire. The sword now leaves the accounts for good. The bottom rung, down at ground level, is bulk ironmongery. Nails by the hundred for builders, hooks, latches, buckles, strapping. Each job earns pennies, but demand is steady, and it's ideal practice for the apprentice. One rung up is shoeing horses. The East Mion records show the manor paying 6 shillings to keep 3 draft horses shod for the year. 2 shillings per horse per year. And horses never stop needing shoes. That isn't a sale, that's a subscription, 400 years before anyone invented the word. Higher up sits plow iron, and the prices survive in the manor accounts of Morden, near London. A new plowshare, 10 pence. Shoeing the forefeet of 2 plow horses, 4 pence. Every furrow drags iron through soil and stone, and the soil always wins in the end. Season after season, the plow teams come back. Nearer the top sits the miller. The same Morden accounts repeat the same lines year after year, dressing the millstones, iron for the spindle, hoops for the cogwheel. And what the miller buys from you isn't metal, it's time. Blunt stones mean days of lost grinding, and the downtime costs him far more than your fee. In the same records, there's 2 pence for mending a window bar in the church, because when anything iron in that town breaks, from the house of God on down, it breaks in your direction. Step back and the pattern shows on every rung. The customer usually already owns the object. You repair it, sharpen it, refit it. The material is mostly his, and the margin is mostly yours. In new goods, your iron bill is buried inside the price. In repairs, it's barely there at all. The unromantic work is the profitable work, and at the very top is the real prize, the annual agreement that turns a scatter of one-off jobs into a standing relationship. A manor or a parish pays you to keep its plows, tools, and horses working all year. The paper trail runs a long way back. The accounts of Cuxham Manor in Oxfordshire for 1316 show the smith paid in installments across the year, one season for plow repairs, another for shoeing, all on a schedule. A century before your shop opened, English manors already treated smithing as a standing service rather than a series of purchases. And on every rung, the same fact does the work. The town around you is made of wood. Iron joins wood in carts, plows, mills, and houses, gives tools their cutting edge, and shoes the animals that pull all of it. And all that iron wears out on a schedule you can put in a calendar: plowing, fairs, harvest. Where is your best salesman? And he never sleeps. A sword brings glory once. A plowshare brings a man back every year of his working life. With repeat revenue and structural demand, the shop looks unsinkable. And yet, 2 smiths doing identical work in identical towns could be running completely different businesses. The difference is one clause in the contract. Put 2 real agreements side by side, both preserved in manor records, both about the same thing: keeping the manor's plows and iron. East Mion, 1409. The manor buys the metal itself, 22 shillings of iron and steel out of its own pocket, and it pays you 8 shillings of maintenance for a year of forging. Your hands, they're metal. If iron doubles tomorrow, it's the manor's accounts that bleed. Your costs don't move. Morden, 1346. Arranged the other way, The manor pays the smith 14 shillings a year, all-inclusive, to keep 2 plows and iron, and he buys the metal himself at a price fixed in advance. 14 looks better than 8, but now every swing of the iron market passes straight through his purse, and the editor of those accounts warns outright that the sum may not have covered the smith's real costs. By signing that, he stopped selling smithing and started betting on the price of iron a year out, with his stake locked in before the game began. Those 2 documents are 63 years and a whole county apart, so this is no clean experiment. All they prove is that both models existed. Same hammer, same skill, same sweat. But one agreement is a salary with a forge attached. The other is commodity trading in an apron. And now the East Mion breakdown reads all the way through. Metal, 73% of the bill. Labor, 27%. Whoever holds the metal side holds 3/4 of the risk. Owning this shop means pushing that side of the table towards the customer, and when you can't, pricing like a merchant instead of a craftsman. Smaller levers stack up around that clause. Keep the scrap and your material cost drops. Sit on the road and you sell urgency the passing trade. Raise your price at the peak of plowing when everyone needs a share and needed it yesterday. Demand payment on the spot or material up front. Every lever moves the margin, but whether you survive is decided by the contract. In a bad year, the contract goes to work immediately, and the trouble arrives from the side it never mentions. First, the market. When plague swept England in 1348, it killed customers alongside miners and merchants, and iron supply seized up. By 1354, petitioners in London were claiming bar iron cost 4 times what it had 6 years earlier. That figure comes from the arms market at the height of a crisis, so treat it as a claim rather than a measurement. But the mechanism matters more than the multiplier. For the modern smith, locked into a fixed, all-inclusive price, a jump like that eats the margin and then starts on the family table. Second, the neighbors. 1377, London. Thomas and Alice Young sue the armorer Stephen at Fryth over his forge, and their complaint survives in full detail. A chimney built 12 feet lower than required and against city custom. Sledgehammer blows shaking the party wall. Work carried on day and night. Sea coal smoke seeping into their rooms. They claimed the rental value of their house had fallen by 70%. That's their own number. Fryth's side answered that the chimney had already been raised and reinforced. However it ended, Fryth pays masons and lawyers both. Your trade is fire, smoke, and hammering inside a town built of wood. Being a neighbor is a cost line too. Third and deepest, debt. 2 documented cases show how fast it cuts. William Randolph, a London armorer with a serious multi-anvil workshop, owed £48. They took everything: his stock of armor, his household goods, the anvils, the bellows, the tongs, the shears. Valued at £33, 13 shillings and 11 pence. His entire world, hammers included, covered 70% of the debt. And Richard Cripps, whose tools just gave us our startup costs, only entered the record at all because he owed a priory £40 against £20 of goods. The inventory we built your smithy from was a seizure list. Your opening price sheet was taken off a workshop being pulled apart. Fourth is the trap with no villain in it. Back to East Mion one last time, to 1301, when the accounts explain their own numbers. Spending on plow iron spiked that year because of excessive drought. Baked ground shatters shares and coulters, and broken iron floods into your shop. That looks like luck, right up until you remember what drought does to the harvest, and to your customers' purses. The same weather that fills your order book empties the pockets that pay you. Your busiest stretch arrives exactly when your customers are poorest, and that is precisely when you're handing out work on credit. And an honest caveat about ruin: we're not inventing bankruptcies. No surviving parchment shows us the tidy collapse of an ordinary village smith in 1410. What survives are fragments: a forge dismantled and abandoned, the good tools carried off; an armorer's goods seized down to the last pair of tongs; a lawsuit over smoke and shaking walls; a workshop worth half its debts. Put the fragments together and the shape of failure is perfectly clear. It just never signs its name. No smith's own account book has reached us. So let's build a year ourselves, calibrated against every price we've listed, and call it honestly what it is: a reconstruction. A good year. Manor contracts, steady repair and shoeing, ironmongery for builders, millwork and passing trade. Call it 14 pounds through the door. Against it, 5.5 pounds on iron, steel, fuel, and carriage. Nearly 2 pounds keeping the apprentice fed and clothed. A pound of rent, another pound for guild dues, tool wear, and debts that never come back. 4 pounds 15 shillings stays in the chest. On a shop that costs 3 pounds to open, that looks magnificent. An average year is quieter. 10.5 pounds comes in, and after a smaller bill for material and fuel, about 2 pounds 10 shillings remains. And one missing entry kills the whole celebration: your own wages. Ask what your hands would have earned working for someone else. 40 shillings, 2 pounds at the fixed London journeyman rate. Subtract the salary you never paid yourself, as any honest book must. And the real profit of an average year shrinks to 10 shillings. In a good year, 2 pounds 15. On paper, this forge returns around 90% a year, but that return exists only because the owner priced his own labor at zero. A bad year strips the cushion entirely. Revenue falls to 7 pounds, costs barely bend, and the apprentice still eats at famine prices. The chest closes 15 shillings down, and that's before you remember your unpaid wages. Turn the screw one more notch. Take apprentice keep not at the bottom of the research range, but at the middle, and even the average year goes into loss. The distance between a decent living and working for nothing is exactly one hungry teenager. So could you get rich? On one hearth and your own 2 hands? No. John Payne shows what it actually took. A London armorer, he died owning property in 5 counties. His fortune grew out of reselling other men's goods, several specialisms, city connections, land, and credit. He was an armorer, not a village smith, and even so, it wasn't the craft that made him rich. The wealth arrived on the day the hammer stopped being the only thing earning in the shop. Look at the smithy one last time, without the film lighting. It was never the town's armory. It was the repair service for an entire wooden world. Supplier, roadside station, and scrapyard under one sooty roof, keeping every plow, cart, and mill within walking distance in working order. And its owner's fate was decided before the fire was even lit. Back at that table in East Mion, where 22 shillings of iron sat facing 8 shillings of skill. Everything depended on which side of that line your name was written. The hammer was never the business. The contract was. 2 quick questions. What runtime do you need? This runs roughly 19 to 20 minutes of narration, and I can cut it to 10 or 8. And do you want the money kept in shillings and pounds, or converted into plain reference points like so many days' wages?